Welcome back to the Road to National series, and today I'm going to take you through a dynamic effort upper workout, and later in the video I'm going to talk to you about the dynamic effort method and how you pick dynamic effort variations, how to program it, stuff like that. But first, this is me doing my dynamic benching for this week. Now this is my first week in the 3-week wave, so I'm doing 80% of my 1 rep max in total. 50 kilos of that is coming from bar weight, 33% of my 1 rep max, and the other 70 kilos is coming from the band tension, which is 47% of my 1 rep max. Now these moved really well. I felt like I had loads more in the tank. I have just adjusted my dynamic effort programming, so I'm just doing 3 sets and it felt really good. The bar speed was much faster than my previous dynamic efforts. If you go back and watch my last dynamic wave, it's moving slower, and the whole point of dynamic effort is to explode and move the bar as fast as possible. So I was very happy with those. Moving on to the accessories, starting off here with rope tricep extensions. Now I still had massive tricep extension DOMs, tricep DOMs from my workout, the upper max workout on Monday. So I decided to do a lighter variation of tricep extensions where I was going to get more reps and just get blood into them. Today, at the time of recording this, is the following day, and they feel great. They feel less sore than they did before I trained them yesterday. So sometimes that could be a great tactic if you're meant to train something. Go light, go high rep, get blood flow in there, and it can actually make them feel better recovered. So after these, I've got dumbbell rows into shrugs, then I have chest press, then side laterals, then alternating hammer curls, and then ab wheel to end. The dreaded ab training, which I hate so much, has returned. So whilst those accessories are playing in the background, I'm going to talk to you about the dynamic effort method. So the main principle behind the dynamic effort method is when you are trying to get stronger, your strength is your ability to enact a force on an object. And if we think back to school for a minute, we know that the equation for force is mass times acceleration. So normally when you're lifting weights, all weights are accelerated down to the ground at the same rate. The rate determined by gravity when you're on Earth, minus 9.81 meters per second squared. And what we do is we measure strength by changing up our regular weights. However, with dynamic effort method, what you're trying to do, instead of just improving your force production by manipulating the mass, you're trying to help increase your ability to accelerate weights. So it's not necessarily about lifting the heaviest weights, it's about how fast you can lift those weights, and that's also going to help you develop your force production, which then transfers back into max effort lifts. So although powerlifting is a slow bar speed sport because it's so maximal, you're doing a 1 rep max, doing dynamic effort method training can help transfer over that because you've worked on accelerating lighter weights faster. So when I do my dynamic effort method training, I'm training for speed strength. So that is how fast you can move moderate weights. That is why it's 80% of my 1 rep max for this week. If you're doing a sport where you require explosive strength instead, explosive strength is how fast you can move really light weights. Like in a shot put or javelin, in order to get the furthest distance, it's basically who can accelerate that really light weight the fastest, because everybody can pick up a javelin, it's really light. It's how fast you can move it that determines how far you throw it, as well as technique and like the angle at which you throw it at and other factors. But that is explosive strength. That is not really relevant to powerlifting because powerlifting is such a heavyweight sport. It is literally a maximal lift, an absolute strength sport. I train speed strength instead, so that's why my dynamic efforts are around 80, then 85, then 90% 1 rep max in total, mixed bar and band tension. If that sounds really high and you've only ever used bar weight before, it is much easier with the bands. That is the tension of the bands at the top of the movement, but obviously when they're less stretched further down, they are easier to move. So the other thing that the dynamic effort will do, what the idea behind it is When you're getting stronger, you have neurological adaptations, and that is how much of your muscles can you recruit, how much of your muscle fiber. When the brain sends the signal on a squat to your quads to contract, for instance, how much of your quad muscles can you effectively recruit? And one of the ways that people get stronger, one of the ways that skinny people can be really strong, is if they have great neural efficiency. So that is a way to get stronger, and the dynamic effort method specifically trains neurological adaptations, and it teaches you to recruit your motor units faster. So lifting heavy weights, when I do the max effort method training, that is about how much of your muscles fibers you can recruit, but dynamic effort is how fast you can recruit them. And if you can recruit them faster, you will blast through sticking points, because instead of grinding for 8 seconds over a lift, in the first second you will have recruited more of your muscle fibers, so the weight will have been accelerated faster, it'll have moved easier, and then you'll blast through the sticking point anyway. So that is the logic behind training dynamic effort method. Now, I use bands because they help provide 2 extra benefits. The first one is they are accommodating resistance. So it gets harder throughout the range of motion. From the bottom of the bench to the top, it gets increasingly harder. And that really helps you learn to explode the weight. But more than this, bands also provide overspeed eccentrics. So what they do is actually pull the weight faster to the ground than it would normally fall. So if you drop 2 weights in the gym, it doesn't matter what weight they are, they normally fall at the same rate. Like I said earlier on, force is mass times acceleration, and the acceleration of objects on our planet is set. It's at that minus 9.81 meters per second squared if you ignore air resistance and stuff, which we do for weights. But when you use bands, what they're actually doing is accelerating the weight you're using faster than gravity. So you have to learn to really develop your acceleration up. It helps develop your explosion, your explosiveness and your dynamic effort strength so much. So I strongly recommend you use bands. The way that you measure how much band tension there is go and stand on a weighing scale next to where the band is anchored. Weigh yourself, let's say you weigh 100 kilos, then anchor your band and pull it up to the height of where the bar is at the top of your range of motion. So where you lock out on bench, for instance, and then step on the scale again and read what your weight says now. So if you weighed 100 kilos and now it says 120 kilos, you have 20 kilos of band tension on that side, and then you double it for both sides. In total, you've got 40 kilos of band tension at the top, and we always measure and program band tension from what it is at the top. We just know it gets easier towards the bottom. So that is how you utilize the bands. I strongly recommend you get some bands and do dynamic effort training with them. Now, how to choose what variation of dynamic effort methods you do, it's pretty simple. It wants to be something that you can explode. So pause deadlifts, for instance, are not a good idea, having a pause in it. It wants to be something where you explode through the entire movement, and it wants to be something that generally targets your weakness. So I'm doing normal dynamic benching for this week, but let's say my weakness was lockout, I might do a board press dynamic where everything's heavier and it's just the lockout portion because that's what I wanted to. If you have weakness off the chest, you could do a cambered bar dynamic bench, in which case you'd allow the bar to sink even further and work on a deeper range of motion. So that's how you choose your dynamic effort variations, but they're pretty simple. Just pick some sort of movement that you can explode through and then add band tension to it. So the last thing to say is, like I briefly mentioned earlier on, it's all about bar speed. So if you're doing the program weights but the bar's moving really slowly, that defeats the point of band tension. So you should adjust your percentages accordingly. So that is it for today's video. I hope you did in fact enjoy the video. If you did, drop it a like, drop it a comment, subscribe, click the bell, all of that good stuff, and have a great day.